Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar series related to global collaboration for sustainable nuclear education. We are very pleased to see several of you tuning in today. This first webinar of the series will be an interactive webinar. We will have live audience, and at the very end of the webinar, at the end of all contributions, we will have a Q&A session. You can type your questions at any time through the WebEx channels, chat and Q&A, and we'll do our utmost to respond to your questions at the end of the webinar or offline to selected questions. The webinar is being recorded and will be posted online in the next few days. During this hour, international experts and network representatives will share their experience and perspective on sustainable nuclear education and collaboration around it. Some of the good practices, mechanisms and tools collectively harnessed through networks and international institutions to support capacity building in the nuclear sector. So, by the end of this webinar, hopefully you will be able to understand the role of educational networks in support of nuclear educational programs, the underpinning benefits, mechanisms and good practices, and overall benefits from the knowledge and experience shared by successful networks. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Maria Elena Urso. I work for the Nuclear Knowledge and Management section of the Nuclear Energy Department of the IAEA, which I joined in 2015, and since then have been coordinating and delivering nuclear knowledge management projects, especially focusing on education and training initiatives. Prior to that, I've served the Nuclear Energy Agency at the OECD as nuclear energy analyst, and I worked for the private sector and academia in the UK. I'm joined today by John Roberts, who is our host and co-moderator. Thank you, John, for your support. John has joined the agency just over a year ago, but he has been working with the agency in education and training related programs for a long time as an external expert since 2008. Prior to formally joining the IAEA, John worked as a professor at the University of Manchester in the Nuclear Physics Group and in the Immobilization Science Laboratory at the University of Sheffield. Today, we have the honor of having on board three prominent speakers from across the globe who bring global experience on the topic at hand. Let me introduce them briefly. I will give you a bit more biographical information later on. We have from Argentina, from the National Atomic Energy Commission, Professor Raúl Barragina. From Belgium, from the European Nuclear Education Network, Gabriel Pausbel, and from Paris, we have Antonella Di Trapani joining from the OECD Nuclear Energy Agency. Welcome to all our panelists, and I'm very excited to hearing your contributions. But before we pass the floor to our first panelist, I would like to provide some perspective and a short introduction on the support that the International Atomic Energy Agency offers towards networking in nuclear education. So, collaboration in nuclear education is at the core of our mandate. It's advocated in the very statutes of the IAEA of the agency, and it has been reiterated through numerous resolutions that have been issued throughout the years by the IAEA General Conference. So what is at stake? At the core of networking is a standing fundamental challenge we are all familiar with, which is the need to ensure a sustainable and suitable pipeline of skilled and qualified professionals that meet the specific demands of each country's nuclear sector. So contextual needs at the national level and regional level. Context here is important, as we will hear later from Rose's presentation. Yet our industry, we see many times struggles appealing and retaining the young generation into nuclear careers. At the university level already, but even upstream of that, young pupils and students do not show interest in science, technology, engineering, and math topics that are the building blocks of nearly all careers in our field. So, looking at the front end of capacity and competency building at the educational strand, in order to have the right capability that supports a sustainable workforce pipeline, we need to ensure sustainable and robust educational programs that are relevant, well attended with a critical mass of students, and therefore sustainable. How can educational networks help member states addressing this challenge? Networks, by definition, build bridges. Nuclear educational networks build bridges between educator providers and stakeholders that have a role in shaping up nuclear educational programs. Notably, policymakers, but importantly the industry, which is what enables that alignment and relevance that we highlighted in the previous slide. So as a first tier, networks provide a platform for educational institutions to come together, integrate and pool existing resources for education and training, leveraging means and capabilities, promoting the dissemination and exchange of knowledge and information and teaching materials, enabling donors, recipients, mechanisms and dynamics that are so important in nuclear education in the different regions, as we will also hear later. Networks have promoted prominent initiatives in outreach to appeal the young generation in nuclear careers by promoting mobility, for instance, within the region boundaries, but also beyond them, enabling the exchange of teaching staff and students, which makes nuclear careers more attractive. Importantly, the networks have promoted the innovative use of information and communication technology and advanced virtual tools that have fostered technology-enabled learning modalities, so virtual learning, online courses that today are so indispensable for the delivery of any educational program and are so mainstream, were pioneered by the network many years ago. So, cognizant of the importance of collaboration in nuclear education, the agency has been supporting several networks across the regions. In the Asia-Pacific region through the Asian Network of Education in Nuclear Technology. In the Latin American region, its sister network, CLANET, AFRONET in Africa, and STARNET in countries of the Eastern European Central Asian region. Here I provide a chronological timeline of the year of establishment of each of our IAEA foster networks, noting, however, as well how these networks, along with the sister network operating in the European area, ENEN, have come together to vow their desire and commitment to work in a synergic manner by signing collaboration agreements. And the agency has been supporting these 4 regional networks through technical, scientific and secretarial assistance, but also importantly through financial support that has been delivered through regional projects via our technical cooperation department. We have also provided the platforms to the networks to come together, first and foremost physically, through physical meetings up until now at least, that we commonly refer to as networking networks meetings, and that have been running pretty much at an yearly basis since 2011. The last one having been held just last week in a totally virtual modality quite successfully. So these meetings are intended to bring together networks representatives and leaders to exchange their experience, share resources, best practices, lessons learned, cross-fertilize ideas, and discuss on common topics, challenges, and synergic actions. Importantly, over and above our 4 IAEA poster networks, we bring together also other key partners, the NEN notably, as well as other national networks, nuclear networks and consortia. Through these meetings, network representatives have laid out a common action plan that essentially enacts those collaboration agreements I mentioned in my previous slide to promote collaborative synergic initiatives. And here, several of which throughout the year have borne good fruit, good results. Here I would just like to mention InnerConnect, an initiative that was conceived in one of these networking network meetings a couple of years ago, and since then has been a platform for the delivery of regular webinars on many topics on nuclear science and technology that are delivered at the interregional level. We also provide virtual spaces for the networks that we are striving to make more functional and effective, and so we are giving a dedicated space in the upcoming digital hub that the section will be launching soon, and of which you will hear in one of the upcoming webinars. So here, I just would like to mention only a few of the key network accomplishments and some of the prominent activities that the networks in their individual regions that remit have been promoting throughout the years. And these span from online virtual learning and courses, sharing of teaching materials through online repositories and laboratories, virtual experiments, several initiatives that are aimed at awareness raising towards nuclear knowledge management and capacity building topics, as well as outreach activities starting from the very early days in primary and secondary schools through train-the-trainer programs, but also initiatives aimed at university students and young professionals. Notably, here I would like to highlight that networks have been instrumental also in enabling the sharing and common use of research facilities that has also allowed remote learning that is really important through, for instance, initiatives such as the Internet Research Laboratory, IRL, or other equivalent initiatives. We will hear more details about these and other initiatives by the networks themselves today and throughout the series dedicated to collaboration in sustainable nuclear education. So this was really a quick overview and initial introduction from the IAEA perspective. Now I would like to pass the floor to our panelists, and we will begin with Professor Raul Barracina. Professor Barracina has accrued tremendous experience in the nuclear field, and in particular in nuclear education. He currently combines the university teaching at the Bacero Institute, as well as the scientific research at Bariloche Atomic Center of the National Atomic Energy Commission, CONEA, in Argentina. He has been associate member of the International Center for Theoretical Physics and is now fellow of the Institute of Physics of Great Britain. In 2011, he was appointed the head of the Department of Radiation Interaction with Matter at CONEA, and since 2017, he is manager of the academic area of CONEA. Involved in international collaboration in nuclear education, he has served as the president of the Latin American Network for Education in Nuclear Technology, LANET, and he has worked closely with the IAEA and also with the Nuclear Energy Agency. Throughout his career, he's been awarded a number of prestigious awards. So it's a real pleasure and an honor to have Professor Raul Barracina on board. Raul is joining us from Bariloche, actually, from his home in Argentina. His connection has proved to be very unstable, so he has kindly provided a pre-recorded contribution that I'm now going to play. However, Professor Barracina is connected and will be available to answer your questions later. So let me play now Raul's contribution.
I'm very thankful for the possibility of participating in this panel. I would like to start my talk by asking a question. What are we talking about when we talk about an educational network? Kundera wrote that the truly serious questions are those that can be asked by even a child. Only the naivest questions are truly serious. And this seems to be an example of such naive and serious questions. However, at a first approximation, its answer seems obvious. It refers to the case when two or more higher education institutions collaborate with each other. But this means nothing at all, unless we can answer these three related questions that immediately arise. For what? Why? And how? Let us see if we can provide some reasonable answer to each of these questions. The first questions could be answered simply. An educational institution collaborates with another one to achieve a better training of its graduates. But now, what hidden or apparent force might move some higher education institutions to collaborate among them? In what sense collaboration improves the training of their graduates? Well, let us assume that I live in a country that is embarking on a nuclear development plan. It will undoubtedly require highly qualified human resources and an appropriate training and education structure. Now, from a Latin American perspective, there are countries such as Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina that have nuclear power plants. Okay. Other countries will be thinking about that possibility. Others require the various uses of nuclear technology. And finally, there will be those where the issue is not a topic of interest or debate, and even face strongly contrary public positions. Well, even in the later case, it is important that graduates from different careers have a general exposure to basic knowledge about nuclear technology. Take, for example, the case of physicians and health personnel in general. I know that there are medical careers where graduates know absolutely nothing about radio protection. And that is extremely serious, isn't it? Politicians, economists, and journalists should also have a general knowledge on the subject, since it is essential for states to make informed and correct decisions on the use of these technologies. And here we are moving from the higher level education and training to the primary and secondary level. To be good citizens, we must know these topics. Thus, we come to the third leg of this answer, where we address the general public, understanding that outreach is very important and should be considered along with education and training as a crucial tool in the process. Well, it seems we have a good answer for the what for. But a word of warning. If the educational institution loses sight of this north, if it forgets its primary functions, either because it gets bogged down in everyday life, in bureaucracy, or in a false tradition, then everything I'm going to say from here on, everything I'm saying, in fact, is useless. We might be talking and talking about the importance of networking, but it will be a speech void of content, ideas, and above all, results. Now comes the why. In what sense collaboration with other institutions can help my institution to improve the training of its graduates? Well, here are several options. For example, assume that my institution does not have material to teach its courses. I can refer from adequate bibliography to equipment of different levels of complexity, from computers to even research reactors. Another institution has what I need and is willing to share it with us. So collaboration comes to life. Another case would be when my institution has a shortage of qualified professors in a specific subject, while another institution has that human resources that we lack. A more extreme example occurs when an institution needs to train professionals in a discipline, and I am not referring to a subject such as, for example, neutronics. I want to create, for example, a career in nuclear medicine. But in my institution, there are no specialists in nuclear medicine, and then I cannot create such a career by myself. Finally, the most extreme case of all. My institution completely lacks capacity in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The only way to create a general tradition of this caliber is in collaboration with other institutions that has that capacity. But until now, I have been discussing this issue from the point of view of the institution that has a specific vacancy or need. What about the donor institutions? Why would it be willing to share the capabilities and equipment? From a completely selfish point of view, what does it gain from such collaboration? Well, this is a very, very complex question. In the most balanced form, it can be a cooperation between peers. This is the most traditional form of exchange. I give you what you need, and you give me what I need. On the other hand, the less balanced form, where one institution is well above the other, has been a research topic in sociology and mainly in history of science for decades. In this regard, I am grateful and happy to have been able to share valuable discussions about this with Lewis Pienson, who retired from Western Michigan University in December 2019. Well, Pienson published a trilogy of books on unequal collaboration between institutions. According to his strongly debated conclusions, the motivation of the donor institution ranged from its most pernicious form, typified as scientific imperialism, to the most virtuous collaboration vision without false concepts of superiority or patronage. However, I would like to rescue the possibility that this collaboration is, as indicated by Clive Kessler, not as a conspiracy then, nor even as an impersonal, structurally induced convergence of diverse influence all working broadly in the same direction, but rather the outcome of the untidy, even inchoate, clash of variety of forces, of variable strengths pulling unevenly in different directions and bearing over in silence and also in their clarity of articulation. Well, having established a clear answer to the question of for what and a series of typologies for the why, let us move on to the last instance, the how. If my institution has a vacancy in a specific subject, it can ask the other institution for an expert to come and teach my students. However, it might not be a wise idea to bring in an expert every single year. It might be better to create a research and development team in that perceived subject. So I can analyze two possible paths. One, more difficult, would be to tempt one or some experts from the other institution to settle in mine, either temporarily or permanently, and provide them with all the resources to create that laboratory. Another option would be to send graduates to carry out master's or doctoral internships in laboratories of the other institution. Then, upon their return, these prodigal sons would be the ones who will bring the knowledge that my institution needs. Both possibilities have advantages and disadvantages. And in Argentina, we know that very well since we walk both paths. But they clearly imply a long-term bet and a coherent institutional policy. As I said, in Argentina, we know this situation very well. At the end of the 19th century, Argentina was an extremely rich but eminently agrarian country. It lacked any important industry and much less any scientific tradition or environment. 4 decades later, the capacity was already available to create a National Atomic Energy Commission, which in January 1958 inaugurated its first experimental reactor completely built by local human resources. How was it possible? Well, the simple and straightforward answer is that we did all this through collaboration. It all started at the end of the 19th century when we transplanted scientists from Germany with a strong financial support from the state, from our rich state. As a result of this process, research and education in physics developed vigorously. Unfortunately, in later years, this audacious project stalled for political reasons. However, based on this initiative, very fluid contacts with the academic environment of other countries were created, and that allowed our first physicists to specialize at German universities. In particular, I have to mention Enrique Gaviola, who was able to make a brilliant stay abroad, which took him to the University of Göttingen, where he obtained a doctorate summa cum laude, the Johns Hopkins University, where he worked with Robert Good, and the Carnegie Institute of Washington, where he worked with Merle Tube and Lawrence Hafstad. In this way, a process had thus begun on which research, technological development, and the training of human resources in the nuclear sector could be based. In view of this experience, I am convinced that collaboration and networking is not an option, but a need. There is no other way, and mainly when we think from a Latin American point of view. Let me say some words about context. When establishing an educational network, everything is about context. For instance, Latin America is vast in size, and it is also in population. Compared to the European Union, it is 5 times as large and has almost the same number of inhabitants. Furthermore, the population is very unevenly distributed. While vast areas such as Patagonia, where I live, have extremely low population density, the cities of Sao Paulo, Mexico, Buenos Aires, Rio de Janeiro, Lima, and Bogotá are among the 20 most populated cities of the planet. Thus, information and communication technologies can provide an effective way to overcome long distances and to bring higher education to isolated locations. However, communication is poor. Serious difficulties of accessing the internet that exist in various countries of the region must be considered, since they hinder the widespread use of ICT for education and training activities in nuclear technology. And what about mobility? Well, our region has the lowest rate of student mobility in the world. Some few higher education institutions have a long tradition of hosting students, but in most cases, this mobility has been basically in one direction and towards a few host institutions and countries. And the financial support for mobility is extremely low. Take into account that Latin America is large and populated, but has less than a third of the nominal gross domestic product of Europe. To all these, we must add the existence of great economic, social, and cultural inequalities that affect unequal access to education and complicate the academic performance of our young people. However, we have some advantages that can be exploited. The absence of cultural or language barriers is an important asset of the region, which undoubtedly facilitates networking activities. Spanish and Portuguese are dominant in the region, and due to their idiomatic affinity being strongly related to Romance languages, people from both language communities can easily understand each other. Sometimes they use Portuñol, an unsystematized mixture of Portuguese and Spanish, to speak fluently with each other. This linguistic affinity makes it possible for visiting professors to teach their courses in their mother tongue everywhere in Latin America. On the other hand, exchange students can also attend practically any course without the need to learn a foreign language, as is usual in other regions of the world. Two other problems are the low academic level of students in science and mathematics and the high dropout rates during the first years of higher education, especially in the areas of engineering and science. And there is another problem that we share with the rest of the world, and it is the low interest shown by middle and higher level students in technical disciplines in general and in nuclear careers in particular. Fortunately, there exists some few sustainable efforts for dissemination and outreach activities, mainly aimed at the secondary school, its teachers, and its students. For instance, I recommend you to visit our webpage and look at the Nucleando project. The establishment of networks of educational institutions at the regional level, such as the one proposed by Leonard, is essential to achieve the goals that I have been mentioned, by facilitating the exchange of information and good practices among members and complementing the capacities and vacancies of their members. However, it should be noted that an educational network cannot be imposed upon countries and institutes, with goals and requirements that do not consider their context. A network must be the result of the will and commitment of the institutions that form it. It is upon them to build a solid, useful, and collaborative educational network. Nothing more, nothing less. And so, my fellow colleagues, ask not what your network can do for you, ask what you can do for your network. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raul, for this really good introduction, which sets the stage very clearly, explaining how educational networks can support nuclear educational programs, really answering some of the very key questions and components of collaboration in nuclear education. Let's move on to our next speaker. I will be sharing the screen again. Gabriel Pavel. Gabriel is currently Executive Director of the European Nuclear Education Network, where he has been working for the last 2 years, delivering a number of education and training related projects. Gabriel is also Assistant Professor at the University Polytechnic of Bucharest, where he has served for over 16 years, working on nuclear engineering, radiation protection, and the use of ionizing radiation for non-power applications. With that, I'd like to pass over the floor to Gabriel, and thank you in advance for your contribution.
Thank you, Maria Elena. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our participants. Okay, perfect. Today, I will present to you the understanding and the underpinning benefits, mechanisms, and good practices in global cooperation and collaboration for sustainable nuclear education as we envisage it in NN. Next slide, please. Next. So what is NN? NN stands for European Nuclear Education Network. It was a network established more than 17 years ago, and it started as an European Commission funded project. So after 17 years, can you go to the next slide, please, Maria Elena? After these 17 years, we can say that our main objective is the preservation and further development of expertise in the nuclear fields through higher education and training. And how do we see in doing that? By promoting and developing the collaboration in nuclear education and training for students, for researchers, and for professionals. We try to ensure the quality of nuclear education and training provided by our members. We try to increase the attractiveness for the engagement in the nuclear field for students, for researchers, for professionals, and for young people, even to young people, and to promote the lifelong learning and career development at a postgraduate or equivalent level, and even to people that are already enrolled in a job and that are wishing to move to the nuclear field. Next slide, please. Maria Elena?
Yes, I'm trying. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Today, our network accounts for 79 members from 25 countries, and we have universities, we have research centers, companies, TSOs, and of course, international institutions. In the next slides, we'll present to you the list of our members, and yes, we can, yep, thank you. And we'll give you an idea of the let's say, the magnitude of our network. Now I will move forward to the collaboration mechanisms and good practices that we foresee in our everyday activities. First of all, we are developing projects or actions into education, into training. We are highly involved into networking, and we are also developing activities for research, for education. How do we do this? Next one, please. Well, we are managing to do it through the very good collaboration of our members. I will shortly present to you a few projects that are currently under development in NN, and I will underline what are the benefits and how do we do it. So, for example, the first project that I want to present to you is the NN Plus project. It's a project worldwide developed. It offers 1 million euros in mobilities for attending specialization courses, for developing nuclear-related activities, and it starts from, let's say, secondary school children and ends up to as I said, lifelong learning activities. All our projects are funded by the European Commission. Next slide, please. This project, and you will see this, that what I was telling at the beginning, collaboration mechanisms and good practices. We have this project, we started it, and we continue it with the help of 22 partners. So this project, for the success of this project, 22 partners are contributing. The project was supposed to last 3 years, but due to the COVID influence, now we are obliged to increase the duration of the project with 1 more year. Next slide, please. The SATE project, or the safeguards related project, it's also a project related to the nuclear field, in which we are trying to establish a master program in the nuclear safeguards. European Commission is funding students to come to this program. So the master is going to be provided by a European university, and it's targeting students outside European Union. Targeting and also supporting. One other key aspect for this project is that we also developed condensed 1- and 2-week short courses to, let's say, to introduce possible attendees to the safeguards field. Next one, please. Tour project. This is a project that we are very proud of. We have here a collaboration between 9 partners, 9 entities that are using research reactors in Europe. And we are trying to develop such a collaboration that will that the normal regular population will benefit from exploitation of these nuclear reactors. So I'm going to give you here only one example, the use of nuclear in medicine. So these research reactors are very suitable for providing, for example, isotopes for the nuclear medicine. Next one, please. The ECC Smart project. It's another successful collaboration between 20 partners. So 20 partners are trying to reach, 20 partners from 3 continents are trying to reach a common goal in the SMR technology. Next one, please. Here are 2 projects that, well, the ACINCH project is a project aiming at developing innovative teaching in virtual reality, augmented reality, in nuclear chemistry. And also Great Pioneer, it's also a project that wishes to develop actions using state-of-the-art tools in reactor physics. Next one, please. Sustainable nuclear education. What are we doing here? I presented you the underpinning benefits and mechanisms that we use among us, among NN members. But this sustainable education must be provided to somebody. In our case, this somebody is represented by the, I wanted to say end users, but let's call them main users, because all our actions are targeting these kind of people. Next slide, please. And when I'm saying this kind of people, I'm referring to them. They are here. It is presented an action dedicated to secondary school children, an action that took place in 2019, a competition for them, a very nice event which was held in Budapest, Hungary. Next one. This these are some events dedicated to ENSNE certification. It's an event dedicated to the master students, and the PhD event, of course, is dedicated to the PhD students. What I want to emphasize with this slide is the activity, the current activity that we pursue now. Due to the COVID, everything moved online. We had also other activities, but they were almost all of them were canceled. So in fact, we were very impacted by the COVID situation because we could not meet face to face anymore. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a short description of the activity dedicated to the master students. We can skip this, I think. Okay, thank you. And this is what I wanted to present to you. At the beginning, I was telling and I was presenting the network of NN without emphasizing the role of the connection with the other networks. Now it is the time to underline what is happening what is the outcome of our collaboration. As you see here in the middle, I put IAEA because IAEA proved to be the liaison of our common actions or common activities or common learning between the networks. We have in our network, in NN's network, we have entities that collaborate, that share ideas, that develop common work, that develop common projects, and also develop common needs. But when we want to go outside of our network, next slide, please. I'm going to give you only one example of a good learning as a result of the current pandemic. So I put this title: what do the COVID-19 pandemic and the LANEN network have in common with respect to NN? What we have learned here is that although we have very good experience and our members have very good experience in face-to-face trainings or classes or whatever you want to call them, to move from face-to-face classes to online is rather difficult. We have several traps. We have a lot of traps that we need to overpass. And also, moving from face-to-face training classes to online, the know-how about how to do it is there. The know-how is there. But the actual implementation experience cannot be matched with the traditional one. So what does Lanent Lanent provided a very interesting action that we consider having it also in NN. They developed some introductory courses on how to do this, how to move from face-to-face to online. So this is what I wanted to tell you, and I thank you, everybody. I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for this really good introduction and overview to the wealth of activities that IAEA is running, and that could be of interest to our participants actually for direct application, highlighting some of the mechanisms and good practices of IAEA, but also of a broader collaboration with other networks. Without further ado, I would like now to pass to our next and last speaker, Dulcis in Fundo, Antonella Di Trapani. Antonella is a senior analyst at the NEA, where she's been leading the Nuclear Education Skills and Technology Framework, more commonly known as NEST, as well as the training and knowledge management activities. Dr. Di Trapani holds over 20 years of experience in R&D, academia, and industry. She has held project and program management roles and has engaged in international cooperation in several international organizations. She was awarded 2 ISI Marie Curie fellowships to carry out her PhD and postdoc. Thank you, Antonella, for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Greetings, everybody, and thanks for the invitation and for the introduction. As Maria Elena said, I work for the Nuclear Energy Agency, an intergovernmental organization that facilitates cooperation among member countries with advanced nuclear technology infrastructures. The current membership is 33 member countries. Next slide, please. NEI countries have expressed concerns about the loss of knowledge, skills in the workforce due to many factors such as decreasing number of graduates, retirement of the workforce who are the owners of this knowledge, and difficulties in transferring this knowledge. International cooperation is thus vital to guarantee the sustainability of the necessary skills in the nuclear area and to preserve and transfer both explicit and tacit knowledge. The NEA has been quite active through the work of its committees and expert groups, the data bank, in preserving and transferring the explicit knowledge. In recent years, the NEA has also addressed the tacit knowledge, and the response to this challenge has been the creation of the Nuclear Education Skills and Technology Framework. Next slide, please. The NEST framework is a multinational framework that, through hands-on training activities and challenging projects facing real-world issues, aims to develop skills and competencies for the next generation of the nuclear workforce. In fact, through international cooperation, countries will have access to a critical mass of facilities and capacities available within the NEST membership to the NEST fellows. The NEST countries which are currently participating in the NEST framework are Belgium, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Korea, Russia, Switzerland, and USA. We are currently enlarging the membership, and it's open the framework to both NEA and non-NEA member countries. One of the aims of the NEST framework is to foster human capacity building networks where the NEST fellows will engage with peers and experts and with a wide range of nuclear organizations. And eventually, we'll develop a talent pipeline from universities to such organizations, regulators, and industries. Through its networks and cooperation, countries will be able to address a wide range of concerns related to the potential loss of knowledge and build up expertise and competencies, as well as to attract and retain a knowledgeable workforce. These goals are necessary for the sustainability of the nuclear sector as well as a whole as well as to create new opportunities for the cross-fertilization of ideas to spur new technologies and innovation. Next slide, please. This is a brief overview of the NEST work. NEST stands for Education, Skills and Technology, and the three components are equally important. We will just not do educational activities. We will train the fellows who are master students, PhD students, postdocs, and young professionals through theoretical classes, workshops, and summer schools. So also we'll offer hands-on training activities to develop their skills and competencies. And once these skills and competencies have been acquired, they will be able to apply this knowledge to address real-world issues and challenges, and thus use this knowledge to develop new technologies and products. It's quite important, the relationship between the NEST fellows and the NEST mentors, who are the experts in the leading or participating organizations, from whom the fellows will transfer the knowledge. The fellowship lasts between 1 and 6 months. The fellows will carry out their hands-on training activities by going to another country, into another organization to carry out a project. And on the return to the home organization, they will continue working on the same project, sharing and creating new knowledge. A wide range of organizations are participating in the NEST framework, ranging from universities to research organizations to regulators, TSO, and industries. So we aim to create a global nuclear network which offer and we create the dynamics where the NEST fellows can promote their career and develop their career. Next slide, please. In addition to the classical fellowship, we will have new types of fellowship which are currently under development. So the fellowship, we will have short term between 1 and 6 months, a long-term fellowship between 6 and 12 months. In addition to this, once the NEST fellowship has completed, NEST fellows have completed fellowship, we will have yearly awards to recognize the achievement of the best NEST fellows. The NEST fellows will be able to act as ambassadors, promoting the activities within the NEST fellowship. They will be able to carry out internship in another organization, and we are developing a young professional fellow scheme, which will be able to create the next generation of nuclear leaders. In fact, in this scheme, which will last between 1 and 3 years, we are trying to bring together different organizations. We'll be able to host the NEST fellows for a period of between 3 and 6 months, and where the fellows will go from a different organization. So they will go first, for example, to a research organization, then to a regulator, and then to an industry, and each time changing countries. This will provide really a broad awareness of nuclear, which will be able to accelerate the careers as nuclear leaders. All these fellows together will be able to create a global alumni network, so they will be able to interact in the long term with their peers, able to interact and share knowledge. So this is a long-term process which won't end once the fellowship has ended. Next slide, please. As we said, the NEST is implemented through projects and activities. There are different criteria for a project to be selected by the management board, which is the governing body of the NEST framework. It needs to be multinational, so at least 3 countries need to take part in each project. And they need to address concrete and multidisciplinary challenges and need to offer hands-on training activities. And also they need to strengthen nuclear education programs. Several projects have been already approved and some have started their activities, and their topics range from SNR to safety, to nuclear medicine and protection, to decommissioning and radioactive waste management. And in these slides, only the leading organizations are presented, but in total we have 57 organizations currently participating in the project which have been approved. And we plan to have 280 fellows over the course of the next 3 years. And 13 have started their activity in 2019. Unfortunately, everything has to be stopped with the COVID. 2 new projects are in preparation, one on research reactors, another one thermodynamics of severe accidents. Next slide, please. As we said, one of the aims of NEXT is to strengthen nuclear education programs. Universities, interaction with universities is quite important since universities can first stop to nurture the next generation of nuclear workforce. However, since lately, the NEA didn't have much contact with the nuclear institutions, and for this reason, we are in the process of establishing a global forum of nuclear education, science and technology policy among global nuclear institutions, which will provide, through international cooperation, a forum for dialogue on nuclear education-related activities on science, technology, and policies. All these nuclear institutions will convene on a biannual symposium and will discuss the strategic areas identified previously, identify emerging issues. We had 2 exploratory meetings so far with some of the participant academic institutions, and they've identified already some strategic area of work. One of those is achieving gender balance. The second topic is defining the future of nuclear and engineering education, rethinking the relationship between nuclear energy and society, and revitalizing innovation in the nuclear sector. Next slide, please. So one of the outcomes of the steering committee policy debate in knowledge management, which was held a couple of years ago, it was to identify, to monitor HR data in member countries. And this is important for NEA countries if they want to plan policy and activities in support of human resources development. And also to understand the talent pipeline, as well as the skills and competences required by the workforce. So we launched this survey in cooperation with the European Commission, JRC, and the ERON, which is the European Human Resources Observatory for Nuclear, and the NEN. And the survey will be able to map, also nuclear university courses and programs offered across any member countries, so that the future students will be able to find a program which is best suited to their interest. Next slide, please. The NEA has been active also on outreach activities, so gender balance has been a topic which has been already addressed through international mentoring workshops now since 2017, and we held several mentoring workshops targeted to secondary school students, attract women to study STEM subjects and nuclear in particular. And the next mentoring workshop will take place in Fukushima in 2021. At the same time, we are active in professional schools, address the mid-level careers, and 2 schools which are been running for now sometimes, and some of them for almost 10 years, are the Nuclear Law School International Schools and the International Declaration Schools. And both of the next dates for both of them is August 2021. Next slide, please. With these slides, I just would like to summarize and to reiterate what my colleagues have said. International cooperation is beneficial not just to NEA member countries, but worldwide to all the countries to maintain competencies and enhance human resources development and capacity buildings, and to equip the next generation of nuclear workforce with technical and technical skills in nuclear. The next framework was recognized as the flagship, transfer this knowledge and training the young generation. The other activities we are carrying out, but most important, we would like to stress the collaboration which is ongoing already with our international partners, IAEA, the European Commission, and the OECD Education Directorate. And of course, this is open to further collaboration and beyond. And with this one, I would like to thank for your attention and open for any questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Antonella, for this very insightful presentation, providing us really good information of what the OECD and EA has been promoting in terms of collaboration in nuclear education, which is invaluable. So we look forward to our continued collaboration, and thank you again. Thank all panelists. Now, looking at the time, we have 1 minute for perhaps one single question. John, have there been questions?
Yeah, we have one question. How does the collaborative approach of universities within networks affect the learning of the students?
Anyone would like to take this question?
Is there a target here? I can say that in a positive way. There hasn't been anything negative in collaborating, in universities collaborating among themselves, or research centers, or other education and training institutions. So all the influence is in a positive sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. I believe we have actually reached our time for the end of the webinar. Any questions that you have put through our WebEx channel will be considered, and we will try to address a selection of those in the coming days. The webinar, as mentioned, has been recorded, and it will be online in the next few days. You may have seen we have a rich program of webinars coming up still, so you are warmly invited to join any that would meet your interest. In the meantime, keep safe and well, and thank you again for your participation, and very many thanks to the valuable contributions that all our panelists have shared today. Thank you, and with that we close this webinar. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.